Hey gang, I'm Col and this is episode 33 of the CBD Source Podcast. Happy Hemp Day, gang. This is the CBD Source Podcast, your source for all things CBD. Coming up on the show, we've got a great interview today with an awesome guest. But before we get to that, we've got some pretty cool mother effing news. 2 episodes ago, you might remember us talking to Anthony Sullivan and Dave Christian, and they kept inviting us to MJ BizCon, where they'd be debuting their Mont Kush CBD.
Yeah, we'll keep you updated with anything that's coming down the pike, and we'll hopefully see you in Vegas.
Are you going to be in Vegas?
Which show? When is that?
MJ BizCon in December?
Maybe.
There's about
we'll
30.
Invite you.
Yeah.
We're having a get together.
Awesome. MJ BizCon is, if not the, one of the largest marijuana business conventions in America. It's from December 11th to the 13th. And gang, we're going to Vegas, baby. That's right. Cannabis chef Ryan and myself, Col Cheney, will be going to Las Vegas for the 3 days to check out the convention and meet all of you. Whoever's going to MJ BizCon 2019 in Vegas, we will be seeing you there. We're going to be hitting all the booths. We'll be walking around that convention center, strapped up with cameras, mics. We're going to do it right. So if you're planning on going, if you have a booth, drop us a line, cbdsourcepodcast@gmail.com. Let us know. Hit us up on Instagram at CBD Source Podcast. Drop us a DM. Maybe we'll swing by your booth and talk to you. Later on in the show, we're going to stop by the CBD Source Vape Lounge, talk to Anthony and get caught up on what's going on with flavored vapes, CBD flavored vapes, and the federal government with these flavor bans and whatnot. We'll see how that all panned out. Let's dive right into it. Our guest for today is leading a CBD educational revolution as a minority woman in a predominantly male industry. She completed her doctorate in chemical engineering at the University of Illinois at Chicago, where she graduated with a mission to fill a hole where lack of mentorship and legitimacy for women in engineering exists, and to advise women not to be nervous about the cannabis industry, but to be excited about making a difference in people's lives. She's the co-CEO of the massive CBD manufacturing facility Kazmira. Gang, let's give a warm CBD Source Podcast welcome to Dr. Priyanka Sharma.
Gang, you're listening to the CBD Source Podcast.
Yeah, so you guys contacted me because you're like really into empowering women to join, like becoming engineers in the cannabis field, like joining in, trying to like steer a career into the cannabis world. And it seems like women are like underrepresented right now, right? Is that the case?
Yeah, I just think in general they call it the STEM field. So science, technology, engineering, and math. In general, women are underrepresented in that field. Now, specifically in engineering, when you get into like process engineering, which is kind of within chemical engineering, you see a lot less women taking part in the manufacturing side. So that paired with then cannabis, which is a new industry and it's not really been developed just in terms of what is an engineering role in the cannabis industry. And also at the university level, they're not talking about it. You know, it's very well explained at the university level what you would do as a chemical engineer if you work as a process engineer in an oil and gas refinery, or if you're working in biotechnology. It's very well defined, but cannabis is not. And I've seen a lot of different roles for engineers in this space, which is really cool. And I just think the education needs to be spread about what are those different roles that people can take part in as engineers, whether it's design of actual processes, whether it's actually performing the process and doing things like extraction. You can also be on the finished product side where you're designing packaging or designing a process to scale up a certain finished product. And I've seen engineers take part in all three of those areas.
Okay. Yeah. When we went to a trade show recently, there were like some booths that were like these crazy, all these beakers and these massive glass thing. And they were saying basically that like the field is so open right now, like they're looking for engineers. They, you know, if you want to if you're a scientist or a chemist or an engineer in some way, this is a field that's just starting to boom and they're just looking for people. So like male, female, anything, like if you got the skills, go for it, like get in. Cause it's just, especially as, you know, when we want to talk about, we're talking CBD mostly, but like recreational adult use, as that starts to spread and states open up legally, you know, one after another, you're just going to need more and more chemists because there's going to be such a big demand and not enough supply, right?
There's always going to be a need for products that are manufactured in a safe environment and using quality management standards. So there is always going to be a need for engineers, whether you're on the processing of raw materials side or you're making finished products in the cannabis space. Now, the trade shows that you went to, I think you see a lot of these companies that have equipment displayed because this industry really started with people trying this at their home. That's really how this started, right? They were buying small amounts of this biomass and they were performing extractions in their home. And you can even see on YouTube, people have described using coffee filters and all kinds of things that you can find in your kitchen to make different cannabis products. So
you do what you got to do at, you know, at that point when there's not, you can't just go down to the local 7-Eleven and pick things up. Some people had to become little, Breaking Bads in their own home.
So what's been really cool is it's spurred a lot of innovation and people that don't necessarily have this technical background, they're very interested in making this product. So they've bridged that gap and learned on their own, which is extremely impressive. And now what's happened, as you mentioned, is the scale that has to be achieved. That's why you have these engineers coming in and saying, okay, here's how we're going to design this plant and this process, which is going to make the same product, but at scale.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's how everything goes, right? It starts in a basement or in a garage, and then has to get bigger. It just blows up once the industry finds out about it. Where else do you see women coming in and making a name for themselves in this like cannabis world, and what's keeping them from doing it? Like, not just working at a CBD store or working in a like a dispensary or something, but like,
yeah, I mean, I think there's just in general a stigma about cannabis industry where women are not wanting to offer their expertise in these different areas. There's just a stigma that maybe it's not professional, or there's companies that don't have the same policies that they're used to as in a corporate role. So they're looking for companies to step up and make it accessible for them to be a part of. With that said, we've seen more and more women, like even entering the investment side of the cannabis space, as well as the legal side of the cannabis space, and understanding, enforcements and being part of these huge law teams. So I am seeing more and more women entering the space, but as I had mentioned at the beginning here, the lack of engineers, lack of female engineers is still glaring. And I think that it just needs to be talked about at the university level.
Yeah.
That these jobs in the cannabis space are no different than working as an engineer in an oil and gas refinery. You're still working on the same unit operations that you would if you were in a refinery. It's just applied to the cannabis space.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same microscopes. It's the same, lab equipment probably, or very similar. I'm wondering if they're thinking like, is this going to be a black spot on my resume that if I try to get another job after this, they're going to look at this and be like, oh, well, this is a fucking stoner chick. Can't hire her. She's going to be stoned. Like she's going to be high on the job handling these like rare elements or whatever the next job might be. Like, is it something that people don't want to put on their resume? Are they scared about that? Is that something?
You know what it might be, because when we started the company, there were so many businesses that I would just call ancillary businesses to the cannabis space, as well as just equipment supply and industrial supply companies that are so prominent in the United States that would not work with cannabis companies. So any company that was in any other kind of operation could contact them for different industrial supply or different equipment pieces for their company, but it wouldn't be allowed for a cannabis company. Yeah.
It's so crazy. Not only is it a black spot on a resume to some people, or that's how they might perceive it, or maybe other businesses might perceive it, almost like a neck tattoo to some people automatically makes you like, you're like, oh, that person is definitely not, or like an actor that, you know, maybe earlier in their career, someone offers them to do porn and they're like, if you do that, once you do that, you're like a porn star for life. You'll never be a serious actor. So it's like if you were an engineer, like, and you get into the cannabis space now, especially if it's early on in your career, maybe people, women or men, might be thinking that, where do I go from here? Like, can I even use this as a stepping stone?
Yeah, like they feel like they might be pigeonholed.
Yeah. Now you're like working for Cheech and Chong. No matter what you're doing. It's like that's the new top of that's the new glass ceiling is doing Cheech and Chong's work. It's the same with like having a bank account, you know, like these dispensaries have had such a hard time getting bank accounts, like just for a bank to be even wanting, like taking their money. It's like, take my money, please hold on to this money. Like they don't want to process it like it's dirty money or something. It's like, you know, it's like drug money. It's scary, you know, because of the FDA. Not having, you know, approving for THC at least.
Yeah, I think banking is still a huge issue right now, even in the hemp space. I think for companies to come in and try to get business loans to, you know, just get started, and especially in the marijuana space, not being able to store your revenues somewhere. Where are you putting them? So that's very difficult, and I think it's holding back a lot of companies from their next stage. Yeah, and so I do hope that as this regulatory landscape continues to change, it just becomes more of a nicer environment for banks to come in and help these companies.
And they think of it as a like a scary investment, so they want to throw like a higher rate on it if they do go with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the interest rates are very high. Exactly.
But I don't know. I think that in the next couple of years, that's going to change. You know, like I think the stigma is going to lift on that. Exactly. I think we're like talking about it like this and being able to like tell people about CBD and for people to experience CBD and realize that it's not all the, you know, it's not part of that whole stoner culture or whatever, that, you know, it's healing people and a lot of people are really benefiting from it. It'll take some of that stigma off, especially like companies like yours that doesn't work in the THC space at all.
TheCBDGang.com, the official subreddit for fans of the CBD Source podcast. Questions, answers, CBD gangsters, and karma, at sweet karma.
I want to talk about your career a little bit. I want to go back to like what got you into this field, but like starting, you know, when you went to school, or when you were even a kid. Like what did you always have a science mind? Did you always think about this kind of thing? Or when was your first introduction to cannabis? Do you even remember?
Yeah, that's a good question. First introduction to cannabis had to be, so I grew up in Chicago. I grew up in a western suburb of Chicago. And my first introduction to cannabis was in, I would say, elementary school, when we had to attend this program called DARE, D-A-R. I think everybody probably knows what that is.
Oh, yeah.
And you are visited by sponsors and all these different people that talk about how bad cannabis and cannabis compounds are for you.
Gateway drug.
Correct. It's a gateway drug.
Do you remember they had like a mascot they would bring to schools? I can't remember what it was. Like it was like a dog or something with a dare shirt. I think it was like a muscular dog.
I think it was a dog, but it's the black, like the black shirt with the white writing and the red. Yeah.
Red letter dare. I have one of those shirts. I should wear that sometime.
Yeah. So that was my first time I heard about cannabis. And, you know, as you mentioned, there's this idea that if you partake, you know, you're going to end up on your parents' couch or in their basement for the rest of your life. That's
it's a very weird thing to teach kids. I mean, it really is brainwashing. It was like, we can catch these kids while they're young and brainwash them into believing this bullshit.
It's completely ridiculous. Well, what was interesting was being Asian and Southeast Asian background, being from India. My parents are from India. I'm not sure if you know this, but cannabis therapies have been used for thousands of years in alternative medicine in India and in Southeast Asia. It's actually... Oh,
tell us about some of them. I would love to hear some of that.
I think it's actually documented in the first Chinese medical journal, the use of cannabis therapy. So basically, in India, I'll speak specifically for that, hemp grows in the wild. So they will use it for foods or for drinks or during different festivals, sometimes as a religious connotation.
Bong.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
our CBD guru Akas was telling us about that. Like one of the gods is like a special birthday for him. Everyone makes this bong drink, like BHANG or something like that.
There's a festival specifically that they make that drink for. So,
and is pot legal that one day of the year or something like that? I don't think like there's something.
Yeah, you know what? I don't want to say something that's incorrect. I don't think that they think about it in the same context that you do in the U.S. Like I think just because hemp grows wild there, no one's testing it and making sure it's meeting a certain percentage or something like that. So I don't know if it's that granular, but so at school, you're just exposed to just different, I guess, sponsors of this program talking about how bad cannabis is. And then just knowing that it's been used for thousands of years in other countries for actual medicinal therapies.
Right.
It was just different to think about, like how can that be bad?
Yeah. Wow. You know, it's funny because like we were indoctrinated in this country. Like, did you grow up in India?
I did. I was actually born and brought up in the States. Yeah.
Okay. So, but you just knew already about the traditions and everything.
I knew already. Yeah.
So when you were hearing it, you were like, it was just rolling over you like, this is bullshit. This, you know, like, were you telling your friends like, guys, what they're saying is kind of like, we use this at home and there's holidays about this stuff. This is not scary.
You know I should have. I think when you're that age, you're more embarrassed about sharing your culture than you are wanting to embrace it.
Oh, okay. Huh.
So I actually did not tell anybody about that, but I should have. But I remember thinking at that time how strange that was, that dichotomy. So fast forward to after I finished college, I wanted to work in oil and gas refinery industry and ended up doing so for a short amount of time, then went back to do my PhD. And I did my doctorate in basically computational chemistry, molecular simulations. Nothing to do with what I'm doing now, but still lots of things that I find applicable to what I do now today. I finished my degree in October 2016. And at that time, that was just when the industry was starting in Colorado. That was basically when people started talking about, okay, what extracts can you make? It was starting to get into products and it was getting huge.
And here you are, a PhD with a molecular engineering background. And you're like, hey guys, I can help you figure this stuff out.
So it's like all these things had kind of come together. So
qualified.
My husband, working in Minnesota at the time, he's also a chemical engineer. So him and I had started having conversations about this, that, hey, this product can actually really help people. It's basically what they've been taking in India and what they've been taking in these therapies, but it's concentrated. But they're making it into a concentrated form.
Right.
Meanwhile, my parents are also entrepreneurs. They own a business in Chicago.
Okay.
And they work in technology development. So they worked on various molecules throughout their career. So steviol glycosides, which is now stevia, formerly or known as stevia, EPA, DHA, so any kind of fish oils. They worked on krill oils, just different compounds that are referred to as APIs, active pharmaceutical intermediates. So it's the same concept where you have this biomass and you're extracting this active compound. And they're in the business of licensing technologies to companies. So at the time in early 2016, they started getting tons of inquiries. Hey, can you make equipment for this space, or can you develop a process for this space?
Right.
Which was deriving CBD from industrial hemp.
Like extracting it.
Yeah. So what was interesting was, obviously, my parents' generation, they have a different idea of what cannabis is, and they were exposed to hemp, right? They actually knew what the difference is between hemp and marijuana.
Yeah, they knew that hemp wasn't getting them high.
Yeah.
And a lot of clothes and things like that in the 60s.
Yeah. So through many conversations, my husband and I actually decided that we would pack up and move to Colorado and start an operation where we could provide CBD oil. Not only because the industry demand was there, but because there wasn't a technology company in the space that my parents' company could identify that they'd want to partner with. So we thought, listen, let's have our own company. Let's try this. And I wanted to have a hand at entrepreneurship, and so did my husband. So we moved out here and started this business. And we've been at it since, started in January 2017. We sold our first product in March 2017, and we've been consistently pushing forward as all these changes continue to happen around us in the industry.
That's cool that you like incorporated your parents' business into your business. So like, it's like they have these great technologies that I have the ability to tap into this resource. They don't know anything about like hemp extraction or who to go with, but they know that their stuff can work for it. You're already extracting stevia and things like that. So why not me? Why not us? Let's dominate the industry, right? So that's great. Like that's an awesome family business, or a way to throw two parts of your family into making one solid business.
Yeah.
So what kind of technology did they create? Like you adapt from them to start extracting CBD from hemp?
So at the time that we started the business, it was simply extraction technologies that were available. People were extracting industrial hemp, and they were making this product that people still refer to as crude oil. Orochem, which is my parents' business, what they specialize in is purification. So they look at different molecules that they want to remove from a giant, I'll call it a master batch. And they figure out how to isolate them. So there were parts of the process that, due to just me understanding what they did as a business, we could incorporate, but then we built upon them. And that's how we developed our flagship product, which is still our flagship product today, which is I guess it's called broad spectrum oil now in the industry, but broad spectrum oil, which is a full profile of CBD and other cannabinoids and terpenes,
flavonoids, with
a non-detect level of THC. Yeah.
Non-detectable THC. Right?
Yeah. So now this term has, since we made this product, this term has been used and misused in so many different ways that we decided to brand our product Imperial Oil. But essentially what we did was we created an oil which had an infinite ratio of CBD to THC.
What do you mean an infinite ratio?
So the ratio of CBD, so the concentration of CBD to THC is so high, it's massive, that it's essentially infinite. So you have an oil that's 90% of it is CBD, and your THC is at like 100 ppm. So it's non-detectable by any analytical instruments, but still in an oil form.
What is ppm for us laymen?
Parts per million.
Parts per million.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many parts per million?
Less than 100 ppm. Yeah.
Less than 100 ppm. Okay.
So what that did was change the entire landscape of the industry. Kazmira is in the business of providing raw materials. So we have customers that purchase these raw materials and they formulate all kinds of products with them that are now available at CVS and Whole Foods and different pharmacies and other areas. But what we did was give our customers the ability to create a product that had any concentration of CBD, because there was not a concern of THC in the product.
Right.
So with that product, Kazmira changed the entire landscape of the industry. Before our oil was available on the market, the products were large and they contained a small amount of CBD because they had to conform to the compliant level of THC according to Colorado law, which is 0.3%.
Right.
But when you don't have to worry about THC, you can add as much as you want. So all of a sudden there's 3,000 milligram tincture showing up on the market in a 10 ml formula.
All right. You're going to need to explain this for people who don't know what you're talking about.
So
for one thing, maybe since you're a scientist, you can break this down for me. When someone says 0.3% THC, what does that mean?
0.3 weight percent.
Of what?
Of the entire product.
Like of the bottle? Say you have a 1 ounce bottle of tincture and it's got, say, 1,000 milligrams of CBD and then less than 0.3% THC. How much THC is actually in that bottle, or per like milliliter? Like if you did 1 milliliter out of a 30 milliliter bottle and it's less than like 0.3%.
Right. So you look at it per.
Yeah. I want to see how now that I got a scientist on here, I can talk about like, how can we do this math? So like what would one bottle actually have as far as THC goes when it says that it's got 0.3% THC?
You look at it.
You chug the whole bottle or 30 milliliter droppers at 0.3% THC. What would I be consuming THC wise?
Okay, so that's where you have so that's a really good question. So what I'm gonna do right now, give me a second.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I don't miss anything because we've written a great blog about this. I don't know if you have time to check out our blog, but
cool. We'll link to that post too.
I want to explain this in the most simple way possible.
Yeah. The most basic way for someone who's just getting into CBD, they're looking at a bottle that says 0.3% and they're like, okay, what the hell does that even mean? I mean, milliliters and stuff is already hard, but now you're like talking about percentage of what?
Yeah. So I want to give a real example. Okay. So, and this is kind of how I like to think about it, because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the marijuana dispensary level, the products containing THC have a maximum content of THC milligram per finished unit. right?
Right.
Do you
Yeah.
know if that's 5 milligram per finished unit? I mean, I think it's fairly small, is the point I'm trying to make. It's fairly small.
I don't know that. I know that the highest percentage THC, like marijuana plants, are like Bruce Banner or something. You know, you're getting into like the 35% THC, 30, you know, that high range. But I don't even know what exactly that means. Like, how many milligrams of THC are you getting per ounce if it were to be like, this is stuff that I need clarification on from a scientist. So
yeah. Okay. So let's
maybe
just
you can help us all out. We know percentages, but what does it even mean?
Yeah. So
I know milligrams, and then it's once you start talking percentages, that's where it's like, okay, tell me the math on this.
yeah. So that's where this gets confusing is right now in the market, you have these products where they'll name the concentration of CBD, just like you said, it's 1,000 milligram CBD tincture. But then that for me works because I can break that down. They're having you then, because you look at their C of A and it says, okay, I have 0.24% THC. Let's just go with that because I'm trying to get under 0.3, which is a legal limit, right? So I have 0.24% THC. So first thing you need to do is understand milligram per milliliter. So 0.24 weight percent is 2.4 milligram per milliliter. Okay.
Right. That makes sense then.
You have that, right? And then there's a conversion because the density of oil is different than the density of water. Okay. So you multiply it by some factor. Okay. So this 2.4 becomes 2.34 when you're actually figuring out the calculation of milligram per milliliter of oil and not just water. Okay, so just go with me. So you've had 0.24 weight percent has become 2.4 milligram per milliliter. Okay.
Yeah, and there's 30 milliliters in the classic 1 ounce tincture bottle, right? Okay.
Yeah, this becomes 2.34 milligram per milliliter based on the conversion to oil. Now, you know that the tincture bottle is 30 ml. So you take 2.34 and you multiply it by 30.
Right.
And that gives you about 70 milligram of THC.
Okay.
If it was 0.24 weight percent. If it's 0.3 weight percent, it's more than that.
Oh, wait a second here. So 0.24.
0.24 weight percent of
weight
THC.
Percent. So, right. Okay. And so 0.24 weight percent equals close to 2.4 milligrams per milliliter of THC.
Correct.
Really?
Correct.
Really? Wow. So so if it is 0.3% THC, that means one tincture
can have up to 90 milligram of THC. Yes.
For the whole bottle, you're talking.
In the whole bottle.
One ounce could be 90 milligrams of THC.
Well, if you take 3 milligram per milliliter times 30 milliliters.
Wow. I did not know that. Did you have any clue about that? Wow. So one tincture that's 0.3% would have, how many you said? 90 milligrams?
It could have up to 90 milligram. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty potent. Really potent. Huh. And that's legal. So if you chugged a like tincture bottle that has 0.3%.
You're going to be high. Yeah.
Wow. Huh. I did not know that. See, did you hear that?
So then, what we talked about on the blog is, well, here's a problem is that you have this average joint, which probably contains 300 milligram of cannabis, right? At say it's 16% THC.
Yeah. What does that mean?
That's only 48 milligram of THC in the joint. Versus now you have a tincture that had 70 milligram. So I'm talking about a joint. But the problem is that now you have a hemp product which contains significantly more THC than a joint. Right.
Yeah, yeah. If you chug the whole bottle.
Yeah, no, it's not that somebody would do that. I think it's just something to keep in mind if you're a consumer and you're trying to understand what product you want to take. It's important you know how to figure out how many milligram of THC you're taking per dose.
Right. And right now we're talking about full spectrum CBD, not broad spectrum or isolate.
Not broad spectrum or isolate.
Right.
Correct. It's
broad spectrum, what you guys make is basically, it's got all the terpenes. Does it have flavonoids and everything like that?
Everything.
In that too?
Yeah, everything.
Fats and all that. And everything, all the different cannabinoids, probably 112 cannabinoids, just the one that's missing. Does it have like THCA in there too, or?
No, it wouldn't have THC or THCA.
Okay. So minus 2 cannabinoids, it's basically full spectrum minus those 2.
Yeah.
The 2 that show up on the drug test and get you high, right?
The drug test thing, that's a whole nother story, right? It's like
is it?
It is, because a lot of the drug tests are testing for presence of cannabis, not specifically THC. So people have gotten into a bad situation because they've tested positive for cannabis from taking a CBD tincture.
Yeah. Even a broad spectrum, you're saying?
Correct. So I think that the whole industry, I think the testing industry needs to catch up, where it's
seriously
just testing for presence of cannabis.
Like if you just took a raw CBG or something, would it show up? Who knows? Like
I don't know.
Clue.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would hope not, but I just know that there is not a consistency in how they're looking at the testing of this.
So the process that you guys make.
Yeah.
Oh, you call it true spectrum, right?
Yeah.
True spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's taking everything out, making a broad spectrum version, but only those 2 cannabinoids are gone.
Correct.
That's it. Everything else is there.
Everything else.
So you might still show up on a drug test, but it's not going to get you high if that's your concern. Like if you don't, like this is the thing, you're going for the entourage effect. You want all the cannabinoids, you want them as much as you can. But if you don't like that high feeling, or you don't want to be high at work or something like that, that's when you have to go with the broad spectrum. And this seems like a really jam-packed broad spectrum that you guys make, because it's got everything.
It is.
What kind of process did you and your parents come up with together to like extract just those 2 cannabinoids?
Right. So my husband and I, because of just our background, we understand purifications and that too at a large scale. Mm-hmm. But there's specific methods that you can leverage to just focus on THC. And that's what we have leveraged in this case. There's other technologies where you can isolate terpenes from everything else.
Right.
So it's just dependent on if you're finding that purification system that will allow you to do that.
So what do you take out? You take out all the raw like matter. You take out all the like stems, everything, all the plant matter.
We extract from the whole plant. So what we'll do is we have the whole plant that comes as a milled version to us, because we don't like to waste any parts of the plant. Mm-hmm. And we'll make an extract from that. And then from there, depending on the product that we're making, it'll go through several steps of purification. So we're removing chlorophyll, not totally, but there's not that much of this strong green color in our product. So it is getting slightly removed. Other bitter compounds that can contribute to this very plant-like taste, those get removed. But we're keeping all of, as you said, the flavonoids and the terpenes, the cannabinoids, and those lipids and waxes will also still be there in the plant. So we really get a nice profile.
Do you extract the fiber down too? Like whatever you can pull out of the fibers and all that stuff?
Yeah. So at the farm, they pretty much are taking that whole plant and then they're running it through their system, which is taking the entire plant and milling it. So it sticks and stems and leaves and flower.
Are there seeds in the plants that you pull from, or is it not like fertilized
there are no seeds.
Right. They haven't been impregnated to make seeds.
Yes, okay. Exactly.
So no actual like hemp oil in it or anything like that?
No.
This is something I don't know because I've never actually seen a harvest in person. How do they cut it down? Do they like have a machine that cuts from the bottom? Do they pull the root systems out or anything like that? Or do they leave that intact?
Yeah, I think these most of these cultivation companies, they use combines, and these may be actually built for their farm, or they're retrofitting combines that were once used for other types of crops, and then applying that to hemp.
Yeah, they've got to be able to chop through these like 5-inch thick trees. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of technology development that needs to be done on the farming side. And I am hoping that, now that the Farm Bill has passed, and then you have USDA that is coming out with some rules and regulations, you can have these technology companies like a John Deere or whoever that are going to come and say, okay, we can make equipment specifically for this.
Right. There's a market to be sure.
Yeah.
Like get some of these big companies switching over and making some specific hemp and cannabis cultivating machines. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Like anytime it doesn't happen that often that you get it like this new cash crop that just shows up and it's like, oh man, we got to make new machines to work on these because the farms that, already have stuff, but they don't have stuff for that specifically.
I know. And the history is so interesting, right? It's like 70 or 75 years ago in the Midwest, it was a cash crop, and most farmers knew how to grow hemp, or they did grow hemp.
Right. Yeah. Like America's history going back to like the colonial times, hemp was a huge cash crop.
So a lot of people we meet today, their uncles have grown hemp, their grandparents, but it skipped a generation. And so now it's the farmers that are trying to grow hemp now. They're having to relearn everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it might have skipped a generation, but that skipped generation was just doing it on the sly. They weren't doing it massive production.
Well, it's still, people talk about how you can find these like wild hemp fields in the middle of nowhere, and there's no way that somebody wasn't taking care of it. And that's probably true.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably true.
I know my dad had a little secret patch behind the strawberry bushes that nobody knew about.
Where did you grow up?
In New Jersey.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. But might not have been hemp. Anyway, we'll leave that for another time.
What is the worst thing that you've ever eaten, you've ever done for food, to get food while you had the munchies? I'd love to know that.
Oh, that's a great idea. What is the craziest munchies you've ever had? What is the biggest crave you've ever had, and the most disgusting thing you might have resorted to? Like, there's just nothing left in the fridge. You came upon some weed, didn't expect it, and didn't do that shop ahead of time to make sure you had something stocked and ready to go for that munchie crave. What did you end up eating? Because that is an interesting concept. Give us a call, 1-833-CBD-GANG. That's 1-833-CBD-GANG. The numbers are 223-4264. I want to hear from you.
And if you have ever eaten garbage, or I should say food out of the garbage while having the munchies, or any other crazier story, or maybe a story that's not as crazy, just give us a call.
Did you get so high that you ate your dad's 40-year-old Twinkie collection?
No, I did not do that. And that's probably because I don't eat Twinkies. That's probably the only reason.
Did you at home get so high that you found your parents' wedding cake topper in the freezer, thawed that shit out and munched on it because you just had to have that cake?
But if I had one of those spare, just around, I would. I'd be like, sorry, Mom, that's going to just have to be for next anniversary.
Oh, God. I'm defrosting it. You're tough shit, man, and that thing is gone. Did you eat an entire roll of...
cookie dough?
Oh, yeah, just raw cookie dough.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely, that's something a lot of people probably had.
If you went to go make brownies and ate half the batter.
Oh, I bet that's something someone's done, for sure.
Or if you are deciding to eat your leftovers that are about a week old and you're not sure if they're still good, give us a call.
Right. Give us a call. What's the number, Tosh?
1-833-CBD-GANG. That's 1-833-CBD-GANG.
Gang's all here. The CBD Gang. Give the show a call at 1-833-223-4264. That's 1-833-CBD-GANG.
So do you guys have your own fields or anything?
Yeah.
Do you have your own farms?
So one of the things that we pride ourselves on as a company is maintaining good relationships with farmers, especially those in Colorado and the surrounding area. They work so hard to get this crop harvested, cultivated for us. And, you know, it's a very difficult job. So what we do is we work with a company that we will contract this land with, and then we will grow a certain amount of acreage, and that to a certain type of strain of hemp with. And they'll plant in April or maybe early May, and harvest in basically beginning of October.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a big focus on that supply chain here at Kazmira. We actually have somebody that will live on the farm and manage the whole grow that summer. They take samples every couple of days and send them back to our lab so we can track how the other cannabinoids and CBD and THC are forming and increasing throughout the life cycle.
That's great. So you just keep testing the biomass like as it ages?
We have to, because we want to make sure that we know things before the Department of Agriculture will come out and test anything. So we will know before they come out if we have to cut it or not.
That's crazy. So like, does it happen? Do like little dudes do huge batches? Like they're testing too high and you're just like, whoa, this is not going to work. We got to slash and burn this whole section here. Does that kind of thing happen a lot, or do you?
That doesn't happen with our farms that we're contracted with. We do buy biomass on the open market. And what we do at Kazmira, because we have such a rigorous quality management system, is if we test that biomass and it is not in compliance, it will simply not get processed in our plant.
You won't buy it.
Correct.
Like, why would you buy it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So the way that you'll be able to receive samples, and we have somebody that goes out and takes samples from large productions of hemp and will determine what is the THC content and CBD content of that.
Do you guys also deal in the marijuana world, or is it all hemp, all industrial hemp?
We do not. We work with only industrial hemp.
That's cool. So you have specific farmers, you're testing all along, and then eventually they get their crop done October. And then they ship you what? How much biomass are you guys dealing with a year?
Sure, it depends. But, our plant is processing thousands of pounds a day of hemp.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on the strain. It depends on the CBD content.
What strains do you guys deal in?
Yeah. So we've used, I think this year was berry blossom and abacus. Last year was a lot of cherry and auto. And auto 2.
What are the CBD percentages on those?
Usually the percentage is between 8 to 10%.
Okay. And that means
in the milled material. So you take the entire plant, the buds and the flower, the stem and the stalk, and then you grind that, and then you're testing that.
So you ground it all up, and 92% of it is not CBD, and 8% of it is CBD. Is that that's correct. What percentages are the other cannabinoids? Is it all tossed into that 9%, or is it?
No, there's other smaller percentages of cannabinoids and terpenes. Sometimes they are difficult to test at the biomass level. But usually we do end up testing them. So it's pretty small amounts. I think that the other cannabinoids maybe 1 to 3%, something like that.
Okay.
In addition.
I always try to like visualize how things work. So I'm imagining you take an entire plant, say you were to turn the plant into liquid, like there's no actual physical part of the plant left. when someone sees a hemp plant, they're like, how much of that is usable? You know, like if you were to squeeze it like a full sponge of water, what's coming out of it? Basically 10 or less, 10% ish is the usable parts.
Yeah.
Okay. And how much?
Well, usable parts for like an oil.
Right. For making a CBD. 91% of it is non-usable as far as you're concerned. It's like, that's all stuff it's not CBD, it's not cannabinoids, it's not terpenes, it's not flavonoids.
That would just be your spent material. So your post-extracted material.
Do you use that for like hempcrete or any kind of other thing, like sell it to another, like? So
right now what we do is we mostly give it back to our farm for composting.
Okay.
So they'll use it in the grow cycle, but we've also produced pellets, and these have been used on different farms for like animal bedding. So we're trying different uses.
Did you say pellets? You cut out for a second there.
Pellets,
oh,
yeah.
Neat. That's cool. I love the fact, I like the idea of using the whole plant, and then what's left over is composting for the next plant run.
Correct.
Like how like perfect for like the corpses of that year to grow the next year. You know, it's kind of neat in a cool way.
But obviously you can use the stem and the stalk for other products. I mean, I think, yeah.
But once you extract, using your extraction methods, is there anything like viable left other than mulch or like compost?
It is like a mulch, but it has a feed value that is, I think, pretty close to alfalfa. So
cool.
I have no doubt that eventually it may be used for something other than composting, but just trying to give that back to the environment in some way.
Very cool. Yeah, that's neat.
Those are all the uses of the hemp, even after you've extracted out the cannabinoids.
Yeah, definitely. Try to, make nothing go to waste if you can.
Yeah, I think this industry has to keep in mind we have to understand where the waste is going, and every company should be going towards zero waste operations. It's possible in this industry.
There's like 25,000 uses for hemp, but when you're extracting for CBD, like it kind of limits because you're destroying all the fibers as far as like you can't.
Yeah, when you're extracting for CBD, your goal is to look for a plant that's as high CBD concentration as possible. Mm-hmm. And that's been made possible now because of all the crossbreeding activities that people have done with hemp. And obviously in North America, you find most of the hemp is a CBD rich variety.
Mm-hmm. Are you throwing the THC away when you extract it? Does it just get destroyed or something?
It gets disposed as hazardous waste.
Oh, that puts a tear in my eye. But
well, right. But there isn't a step to obtain THC from hemp, right? That's strictly for marijuana.
Once it becomes federally legal, once THC becomes federally legal, I think there'll be a whole it'll be almost be like a hipstery thing to get high from THC derived from hemp. I think you'll have a little side business of I think that'll be like the cool way to get high. It's like, we're getting THC high from hemp. This is it'll be like a niche way to get high.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it's a side business. You'll mark my words. That'll be you'll be making more money on the boutique hemp THC than you would from the other stuff.
CBD gang, we're looking for your weed man van stories. The typical weed man in van has many faces,
Space Cowboy,
Roach,
Filthy Frank,
many names,
Scary Van Dam,
Creepy Casper,
Tired Tanner,
and many different types of vans. But everybody has met him, and everybody has a story. What spliff lord turned you to the dank side? We want to hear about your first experience with the wacky weed, the ganja, Miss Mary Jane. Trees. Give the show a call at 1-833-CBD-GANG. Tell us your story in 3 minutes or less, and we might play it on the show. Hell, one day we might animate it for our YouTube page. Yowza, it's dank AF in here. Someone's smoking the good stuff in the studio. We'll spray some Ozium and be right back with more of the CBD Source podcast.
So my weed man van stories, I had a friend visiting me, and he had really wanted to try some weed before he left California. And I was doing an open mic after a show, or before a show. It must have been after the show. I don't remember. And there was some dude in the back. We had like a little patio in the back, an open patio, and he was smoking weed or something. And I said, I don't normally do this, but can I buy a joint from you or something? It's for my friend. He's going back to New Jersey tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, okay, but listen, this is some really weak stuff. It's super weak. I almost feel bad charging you for it, you know. And I said, oh, don't worry, just give it to us. So there's no smoking allowed in my building, right? So we were on the street. We were on the street, and in my car, unfortunately, it's a Chevy Cobalt, not a Tesla yet. And hopefully soon I'll be able to get a Tesla, pink. Anyway, so we were in my car, and I just kept smoking it like crazy, like thinking, this is nothing, you know, there's nothing in here. Like, he said it's weak. Yeah, he felt bad charging me for it, and I'm sure it's fine. And we smoked it. He felt absolutely nothing, probably because he's like 3 times my size. And yet again, I got so big, my friend had to practically carry me into my apartment.
That's definitely it. Chevy Cobalt. And the guy at the comedy club you met the weed man. That is definitely the weed man.
Okay.
Very cool.
And then, I know a couple people in comedy that are just complete stoners, but he didn't have any extra on him that night, so. But, I don't normally go around buying it or anything like that. I just, this is... again, we have dispensaries here for that.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I don't normally buy it off of some guy, but like
you don't need to. You're in California. You don't need to. You're in California.
My friend was leaving, and it was totally legal then, and I just, So that was crazy. That was really crazy.
Awesome.
I was like so worried about taking him to the airport the next day. I'm like, oh. So luckily I was functional enough to set my alarm. And,
I called you an Uber, dude. I called you an Uber. I'm gonna be couching it for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell your stoner comedian friends to drop me an email if they want to be on the show. Okay. Get a little airtime with hanging out on the podcast, because I definitely want to talk to more I think we need to bring more comedy into the show, more actual professionals like yourself. Very cool.
Sure.
Yeah, I want. And then if there are any New York comics also listening, because I know our biggest audience is in New York, give us a call, 1-833-CBD-GANG. That's 1-833-223-4264. Drop us a message. Let us know if you're into CBD and THC. I know that California comics won't have a problem because it's all legal there, but New York comics too. I mean, it's part of your act. You can use it on the show. Why not? You can also drop us an email, cbdsourcepodcast@gmail.com. Just let us know what's going on and when you want to be on the show, and we'll hook it up. Very cool. Jackie Eco Gang.
Hi, Anthony Sullivan here for the CBD Source Podcast. You've heard the rest, now listen to the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the CBD Source Podcast.
So you guys, are you basically like a white label type of like the parent of white labels? Like you sell to other companies and then they put a brand on what you guys have extracted. Is that what happens?
Both. So we're primarily B2B company for selling raw extracts, which is just the raw material that gets reformulated into a finished product. And then we have a private label program where we are producing the finished product. So we are producing tinctures, we're producing topicals, and people who are starting brands will simply brand those products as their own.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's like white label and the one, like the person behind the white label, like one even step removed. Like it's kind of neat because you wonder about, like, there are farmers. We talked to Anthony Sullivan, and they just went and like created this farm in Vermont and did it by hand, like, no white labeling, like, starting from scratch. And then the next, like, maybe you could help break this down. Like, what are the different ways to get into the CBD world if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to break in? Like, that's the hardest way, like buying a patch of dirt and trying to go from scratch, right? So that's really tough. The second, what would be the second tier of, like, slightly easier, maybe not as big a return on investment, would be what? White label?
Would be making finished products. Yeah.
Okay, so
I think there's, when I look at it, there's 3 areas that you can be involved in. One is the biomass cultivation side.
Mm-hmm.
The other is the extraction, processing, purification side. So providing that raw material,
Mm-hmm.
which is an extremely difficult endeavor. And then the finished product side.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I think there's a biggest opportunity in the market is for differentiated products. And I talk about this all the time because right now the industry has seen similar products come out of companies for the last 2 years, tinctures, topicals, and
gummies, things like that.
Right. It needs to now progress to product forms that are smaller and they have higher dosage of the cannabinoids. And I think that's where the industry has to go next towards those finished products.
Like nanotechnology, that kind of stuff?
Not exactly nano, but for instance, a transdermal. So, can you provide a transdermal patch that has 100 milligram of CBD?
Right.
No THC. And it's like a 2x2 patch.
Right, that like time releases on you like a nicotine patch would or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're going to have these companies innovate to come out with these different products. And that's what I think is the next wave that's going to happen in the industry. So if you want to get involved, I think on that side is going to be the most exciting.
So being an inventor of how different ways to get CBD into people's bodies in higher doses that haven't been thought of yet. I mean, like I've been today. I had a CBD toothpick in my mouth. I had a tincture, a gummy.
CBD toothpick?
Oh yeah, like so they're soaked in CBD, I guess, or like it's somehow So after you're chewing on it, sucking on it, there's a million ways to get CBD into your body.
I guess so.
Yeah, I remember like I was at a trade show and there was a guy who had these little, it looked like a little round candy or something, but it wasn't candy. It was just like a CBD concentrated, and you're supposed to like push it up under your like top lip, like up in here, and it's like supposed to time release. I don't know, weird. I don't like, who wants that annoying feeling in their mouth, like up above their top lip, like up by their cheek, like people are trying to come up with inventions, like you said, like they're trying to set themselves apart differently. I was reading about there's some kind of spandex or something, like yoga pants that have CBD infused into them. That's weird stuff. Like that's what I'm saying. Like you start to make these dumb products, and then it just makes the industry look like a joke. That's the other thing. Like, how thin are we going to spread it? Like you don't look like a novelty. Making joke products, you know what I mean? Yeah,
I think that, again, and that's the thing is not only the differentiated products, but studying efficacy of them. I mean, how fast acting are they? How are they working? Right. That is going to be the next wave of these products.
Yeah, totally. So you guys, as far as what you do sell, like white label wise, I mean, you sell the oil.
Yeah. So, I mean, tinctures, so it could be any flavor, any milligram concentration, and then any sort of topical. We've made everything from a massage oil to a, muscle relief gel and things like that. But those are all under our private label line.
They even sell lubes and stuff. Like they get into it. They get weird.
Is that coming on the market now?
I've seen it. It exists already.
We do not do that.
No white label lube.
No.
Okay. That's another one. Like you're talking crazy inventions. I mean, they're out there.
I mean, if there's science behind it, I don't see why not.
We covered the episode where the FDA opened their they had a public forum and let people come and try to defend CBD and cannabis, mostly CBD. We did 2 episodes on it and kind of talked over all of them. But it closed with this woman presenting CBD infused tampons, and she was basically selling it to them. It was very bizarre.
Wow.
But if it works, if it creates some kind of the anti-inflammatory parts of CBD, I don't know. Do you want to be putting that in you? There's some places where CBD should not be. You're not dropping it in your eyeballs or something. That's, there's certain places that, inventors might go too far. I don't know. So besides the white label stuff you were talking about, you sell raw materials too, bulk raw materials.
Bulk raw materials, that's correct.
So if someone was an entrepreneur, how would they, if they were to buy that from you, where do they go from there? What do you do? Explain that a little bit.
So either they have their own formulation capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
so they're able to infuse CBD on their own into a finished product, or they work with a co-manufacturer, where that person or that company makes the finished product for our customer,
Mm-hmm.
and they send our raw material to that co-manufacturer.
Okay.
So it'd be an oil. It's a processed oil that has very high purity of CBD. So 85 to 90% CBD.
Wow. Okay.
So you're selling that to them in the form of kilograms,
Mm-hmm.
and they will calculate the amount of CBD they need for their finished product in milligram.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they know how much kilograms to purchase.
Okay.
So they'll take that, and then say if it's a tincture,
right,
it'll get diluted into the tincture form.
Right. And then they just have to choose what, when you add, say, MCT oil or...
It's just a diluent.
A diluent. Okay, I'm writing this down. A diluent?
Yeah.
See, I love learning new scientific terms.
So it'll be a diluent oil.
Diluent oil. We didn't even know that word. Now we do. All right, gang, we just learned a new word, a diluent oil. Well, what's the diluent oil that you use when you make your own tinctures and stuff like that?
Well, we do everything on request of customers. So we've used hemp seed oil before. We've used grapeseed oil. We've used MCT oil. So it depends on what medium they're looking to deliver their product in.
Right. So if, say they were filling vape cartridges, what's the classic that people ask for with that, for CBD vapes?
Well, with the vape cartridges, normally what happens is they buy our oil raw,
Uh-huh.
and they will have to put in other compounds if they choose to into a vape cartridge. So we're not doing that at Kazmira.
Okay. Just checking to see.
Yeah.
Because I always wonder, what is the safest diluent oil for vaping?
I don't know. And I think that now that there's so much press about vape products, I think that there's going to be a lot of study into vape products and trying to understand the different agents that people are incorporating into vape pens.
Yeah, I think it's so much hype about that. It's crazy. Come on. Nobody's dying from vape unless they're using this vitamin E acetate, these things that are not part of what we're supposed to be put into vape.
Yeah, I think if you read the articles regarding vitamin E acetate, it was clearly stated that vitamin E acetate was found in vape cartridges that were tested, but not that they understand what vitamin E acetate is doing.
I thought it was creating a lipid pneumonia, sort of like popcorn lung.
Maybe there's been more studies that have come out, and I have to read up on that. But the last I was reading, it was unclear how it was acting.
Oh. But it was not a CBD vape, though. It was these off-market, these illegal THC vape carts that were thin. And they're we need to thicken these so they look like they're potent so we can sell them. So they added this thickening agent that had this vitamin E acetate. And then a couple scammy brands that did this, all those cartridges starting to make people sick and die all over the country. It's it's unfair to the rest of the vape world, especially all these CBD brands that are really getting into CBD vape. And I love CBD vape. I love THC vape. So like that's a great way to, the bioavailability of CBD when you vape it is just instantaneous. It's so quick. Like it gets into your system so quick, especially THC. It's crazy how it started off with this THC stuff with just like a couple bad players, and then it got compounded and spun to a whole industry that's not even involved in that,
Yeah, went to a whole nother level.
Yeah, really did. But it was great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on CBD Source Podcast.
Of course.
I had a great time. Like, definitely come back some other time. We'd love to talk to you again and go further on this. You're only 3 years into this. So and the industry is pretty much just starting. I mean, do you know the projections of how big CBD is supposed to be in like the next couple of years?
It's like crazy how big it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be like $25 billion industry in the next 2 years or something. Well, Dr. Sharma, it's been so fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Definitely. Thanks. Bye.
Gang's all here. The CBD Gang. Give the show a call at 1-833-223-4264. That's 1-833-CBD-GANG.
Warning. The following podcast contains nicotine, fat clouds, coarse language, and other adult shit. It is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised.
You've just entered the CBD Source Vape Lounge with all the CBD vape you can vape. Oh man, here's Anthony, the lounge's resident vape expert. Have you been in here the whole time? The kid lives on vape juice and mod batteries. You know that shit ain't edible, Anthony. Follow vape, bitch.
All right, we're back here with Anthony in the CBD Source Vape Lounge. What's going on with vape, Anthony?
So it's been a lot of up and down in the past month or two, but it looks like it's gonna be okay now, I think.
The last time we talked, we were going back and forth about, is New York getting rid of the flavored vapes, including CBD flavored vapes? It seemed very much like it was going to happen, right? It was like almost in effect.
Yeah, it practically did happen, and then lawsuits were filed, and there was a restraining order placed on the ban, and that's kind of where we sit today in New York.
So there's no effective ban right now in New York. Nothing's happening with it.
Nope.
And then there was, on top of that, like Trump and the federal level CBD, and was it CBD or was it just flavored vape?
Just flavored vape.
So
yeah.
on the federal level, what was that? What the heck was going on with that whole thing?
So he was looking to ban it federally, flavored liquids, but there was a big rally in Washington D.C. with a bunch of people that vape, and I guess that kind of like swayed him to do something different.
And then it was like I remember something like they said they wanted to see some findings, and then like the EPA was going to do some kind of test to see if like all these deaths. What's the number on deaths, by the way, right now?
It's in the double digits.
The triple digits, you mean? It's in like 300 something, right?
No.
No?
No. Illnesses are, yeah.
Oh, well, how many actual deaths?
Deaths, I think it's a little over 20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But they were actually all linked to vitamin E acetate, which is in black market THC carts.
You know what's so hilarious? Death is not hilarious, but what's hilarious is like if you go back and listen to our 2 episodes we did on vape, is your vape killing you or whatever? I think we did like 6 hours of content on that, and that's what we were saying from the friggin' beginning. Like you and me were talking about this from day one, that it wasn't your CBD vapes, it wasn't your nicotine vapes. Like all these illnesses and deaths were these illegal bullshit THC black market carts.
Yeah.
And then like the federal government goes and checks it out, and turns out, yep, we were right.
Yeah, it was funny. They're like, wow, like 98% of these deaths were caused by this, but that 2%, that means that this is not the culprit.
That's crazy.
Very weird, but I think they finally traced it to that.
So, as it stands, we're not getting the federal full nationwide ban.
Not at this moment. I mean, shit changes, but
in the meantime, in between time, how many vape shops went out of business just from the scares?
Lots. Not only that, too. I mean, the shops that did stay open, they're probably getting much less business. I mean, this whole thing worked, man. People are scared to vape.
People just are stopping vaping in a lot of places. They're probably going back to smoking, I would imagine.
Yeah, and especially a lot of smokers that maybe were considering vaping now are like, fuck that.
Yeah, like you get something out there, like something in the media. Like I was watching John Oliver this week, and he was talking about how the new census is coming out and how they were threatening to put a citizenship. You had to say if you were a legal citizen and the people living in your house were or not. And it scared so many people, and then it ended up it's not going to be part of the census. Like it got rejected, but the fear is out there so much that they're thinking the census numbers are going to come back way wrong because so many people are just scared to even open it.
Oh shit, yeah.
Like it's going to really screw up like federal funding for different areas and like what roads get fixed and all this other stuff based on the population. If the population seems a lot smaller because people aren't saying that they live in these places, or if they own or rent, just because they think there might be an illegal or a legal citizen checkbox. It's one of those things. It's like this vaping scare went out there. It's the same. It's like a false flag. This vaping scare went out there. Vaping's killing you. Blah blah blah. You could die. And then it turns out, like from what we were saying from the beginning, that it wasn't CBD or nicotine vapes. It was just this one element, this like rogue black market bullshit element that cheap brands were using to thicken up their like weak-looking THC carts to be able to sell them on the market. A scam. It's like a scam. And it turned out that it was also hurting people.
A deadly scam.
Yeah. But now, like regular normal people, but like people who buy just normal nicotine flavored carts or like nicotine or like CBD flavored carts are just scared to even go into it because that initial fear and like just the word vape now has that weird like scary death thing on it and a little bit like it's messed up.
Yeah, it is. A lot of people, they're like, wow, you still vape? Like, that's fucking dumb. But, I mean, I guess if you don't know any better, but if you don't know any better, you shouldn't, well, you know how that goes.
It's the thing, man. If it's circulating in the news and everyone's hearing about, like, all these deaths and every day the numbers getting higher and the sick numbers getting higher and stuff, and you're just equating it to vape, like, you don't know better.
Yeah.
And then your grandma says, hey, like, why, you shouldn't be vaping because I've read all this stuff. And then your parents say it and your friends are saying it. It's peer pressure, Can you think of any other things like this that are something gets into a hysterical level?
It's kind of like how weed was back with like those silly cartoons and stuff and how you're going to like jump out a window.
Reefer madness.
Yeah.
It's the reefer madness of like this. All these news stories are like the reefer madness of vape.
Yeah.
But the difference is like this is every news outlet is in on the scam.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Like they saw blood in the water and everyone pounced, and they're like, there's so many good elements to it. People dying, kids, vaping flavors, advertising to kids, all this other stuff. So there's a lot of juicy red meat there for news outlets, and fear sells. It's one, like I went to school for art and advertising was like my minor, and one of the like 12 elements of how to market to somebody is fear. How to keep people watching the news and how to keep people like tuning in and spreading stories and making things viral. Scare the shit out of them.
That's a good point. And have you read about the whole MSA money?
No, what's this?
It's not a conspiracy. It's actually real. So apparently in the 90s or whatever, states were like wanting to sue Big Tobacco for selling, poison. Uh-huh. So Big Tobacco then said, we will give you essentially like it's called the Master Settlement Agreement. And basically Big Tobacco would pay states money based off of how many cigarettes they sold in that state, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was a lot of states didn't want to wait for that money, so they went and they took out, they took money out on it. And now that the smoking rates are declining, they don't have like the money to pay back.
Oh, the states owed big tobacco money?
Yeah, all but 3 or 4 states agreed to this. New York, California, 2 of the biggest states that took the most money, and where smoking rates have declined heavily. So now they're like freaking out, like, how the fuck are we gonna pay these guys back? Nobody's smoking anymore.
So that might be the literal smoking gun of why this vape stuff happened, to try to get people back to smoking.
Yeah.
What?
Crazy, man.
I don't know if we're breaking news with that scoop, or if that's, where did you read that? That's crazy.
It's like the big thing, I guess. Like I've read it everywhere, and it's been a thing for a while, but now that these bans are like coming to fruition, people are bringing it up again. Like, you fuckers borrowed money off of this poison, and now you can't pay it back. So
wow.
But yeah, Google it out there, you guys.
That's nuts.
Crazy.
Well, I'm glad everything's ending sort of amicably. That everyone's able to go back and vape their flavors again, and the CBD flavors are not getting hurt. You can still buy flavored CBD vapes in every one of our 60 CBD Source locations. You can check out our locations on cbdsourcecenter.com, or I think we've got a list of them on the bottom of our podcast page, so cbdsourcepodcast.com. All right, man, thanks for swinging in. Thanks for letting me come into the vape lounge. It's been a long while. Vape is still like a scary topic for a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we'll bring this back and do more of it once more news comes out. I mean, how many vape shops do you know that have gone out of business just locally, like around here?
Locally, I know of 4. 2 of them being very, very big, very popular in the past 5 years. So
just gone. And all those jobs and all those people who used to go to those shops just like abandoned and lost their jobs. So it's pretty fucked up.
I know one guy who was like selling out of his house, cash only.
Just stockpiled everything.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yep.
Bad news.
Totally.
Anyway, thanks, man.
Yep.
All right.
See you later,
Gang, you're listening to the CBD Source podcast.
Well, gang, that was a great interview and cool little trip into the vape lounge. It's been a while. Dr. Sharma really knows her stuff, and it's always fun to talk to somebody who really knows their stuff. And we haven't had a scientist on before. We've had doctors, but not a scientist. And it's really cool to talk to someone who knows the science behind it all and crunch some numbers. It's funny that both Dr. Priyanka Sharma and Cody Alt from last episode both started their career in one direction, and then they did the same sort of thing where their parents were in an industry where they had a lot of equipment and knowledge but weren't using it to the full potential. And the kid came in and said, hey, I know what you can do with your equipment and your knowledge. We can make a lot more money. We can revolutionize something. 2 episodes in a row, similar story. I love it. So let's send this into the wrap up. We're so excited for MJ BizCon, and we'll be hyping that as we go, leading up to it in the next several weeks. Until then, I'll CBD you next Wednesday.
Give the show a call at 1-833-223-4264. That's 1-833-CBD-GANG.
CBD Source Podcast is written, produced, and hosted by Cole Chaney. Graphic design, photo, and artwork by Ryan Weber, Johnny D, Kevin Bierfelt, Steve, and Cole Chaney. Marketing by Penny Spinazzola. Special thanks to our resident CBD guru, Akash Patel, our CBD Source Vape Lounge expert, Anthony Maltese, our C-Body Fitness instructor, Danny, our personal Cannabidiet CBD chef, Ryan Weber, our CBD News co-host and vocal artist, Tasha Miller, and our CBD Gang subreddit mod, social media maven, and wrap-up girl Cass. That's me. Additional thanks to Caitlin, Liz, Ryan, and Kevin for lending your vocal talents.
Want to be a guest on the show? Or do you have a great Weed Man van story? Or a story about your craziest experience with the munchies? Call us at 1-833-CBD-GANG. Again, that's 1-833-223-4264. And leave a message. We like your story, we might play it on the show. Visit us on CBDSourcePodcast.com for all your links to social media, YouTube, and our message board, r/CBDGang on Reddit. Be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next week.
Podcast or its related social media pages and interactions are for informational purposes only. The CBD Source Podcast does not offer medical advice. Its host, Cole Cheney, is not a medical professional. His experiences with cannabidiol and other cannabinoids are his own and may not affect you the same way. Everybody's endocannabinoid system is different. The statements made regarding CBD products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The efficacy of these products and the testimonials made have not been confirmed by FDA-approved research. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. All information presented here is not meant as a substitute for or alternative to information from healthcare practitioners. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product. The Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act requires this notice.
Do you like or want to try quality, third-party tested CBD? Do you live in the New York, Pennsylvania area? We got you covered, gang. We're growing more each month, so check in with CBDSourceCenter.com to find our addresses and new store locations. While you're there, sign up for our mailing list. We're adding new stores across New York and Pennsylvania all the time. We may soon be expanding to a town near you.
We smoked 3 different hemp joints, and one was 100 milligrams of CBD, and the other one said 17% CBD. And we're like, how the hell do we figure this math out? Like, which one has more CBD in it? Because one has 100 milligrams in one joint, and the other one has 17%. Any idea how to convert? How do you convert that?
The way that you look at the joints, as I understand, is they just tell you how many milligram of cannabis there is. I don't think that they tell you per like CBD. You just know that it's like 16% or something, because it's just basically the flower, right? It's like the flower.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they're just saying, okay, I put 300 milligram of this flower, and then this much percentage of it is THC.
Okay, so you're taking that, whatever the bulk weight of the milligrams of the weight of it is, and then the percentage of that.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Thank you for listening to the CBD Source Podcast. This is how we CB do's it.
The Bristling.